to the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. This is your host, Corey Corpodian. Today we're interviewing Alex Dastmalchi. His company, Dastmalchi LLC, where he's the CEO and founder, funds different global brands in wellness, health and beauty products. You might have seen some like Vanity Planet, Dazzle Pro, and Vita Goods. He is an expert in building these brands and has grown his company year over year. Alex, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for being here. Great intro. Thank you for that warm introduction. That was awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Well, I definitely, knowing you personally and seeing the success that you've done and seeing all the different brands that you have, it's definitely a privilege to interview you and to go into a little bit about your backstory and where you come from, because I know, being an entrepreneur, you have had some life challenges as well. It wasn't always just about sunshines and roses, right? But you came from Iran. You were immigrated around 16 years old or something like that, I think, right?
Yeah, I left Iran at 16. So, yeah, it definitely wasn't always peachy and rosy and fantastic and a walk in the park, if you will. I was born in Iran, spent 0 to 8 in Iran. I left Iran at the age of 8. This is prior to the revolution. We came here. My father is an educator. So him and 92 other educators were sent to the U.S. to kind of go back, study here, get their doctorate degrees, go back and change the educational system in Iran, which is fascinating. My father's story is much more fascinating than mine. He was born in Kurdistan, and he's just an amazing man. What he's done and his accomplishments are fantastic. So my mom was an educator. She was a math teacher. She continued to, I think, teach for a little bit. And my dad had to become an entrepreneur. Something that he was never good at. That, you're born with some DNAs and he just missed it. He didn't have it. And it's funny, to this date, he's still an entrepreneur. He's 79, turning 80 in March, and he owns his own business. So maybe in a sense, that was a gift for him as well.
Sure. Is that where the seed kind of got planted in your mind to enter into entrepreneurship?
No, I was a daydreamer. I would literally daydream for hours and hours. I'm 49, so imagine when I was 13, this is 36 years ago. No internet, no phone. I think we had 2 channels of television back home. So my cousins and I would just wander off. We would be in the backyard or be walking out in the streets. And I always had a passion for building things, and I always had a passion to become an entrepreneur. I literally daydreamed about it. I would think to myself that one day I'm going to have an office and I'm going to walk in and say hello to people, and it's just going to be this great environment and it's going to be a lot of fun. To zip forward and be here and make it comes with a lot of gratitude, which is amazing. So
yeah, they say in your first year of business, 50% of businesses fail, and within 10 years, 96% fail. So to have that dream as a kid and the perseverance to continue and kind of go your entire life to actually walk in your office today as we walk in, you're saying hi to everybody, getting coffee, hey, how's it going? I mean, it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know those stats, because that might have made me stop and not want to move forward back then. But I always had a lot of courage, and in my mind, I have a pretty, it's a growth mindset. That I've always thought whatever you think is possible and whatever you put your mind to, if you truly believe it and you envision it, you can make it happen. Now, I think people think differently, they dream differently. I'm a very visual guy, so for everything that I've done in my life, I've kind of always visually seen where it's going to end and what it's going to look like. So, went back to Iran. The Iran-Iraq war happened. So that was fantastic. One afternoon, they started bombing and sirens went off, and next thing you know, the airports are closed and nobody could travel or get out. Subsequent to that, I think the airports did reopen. Now you got to mind you that this war went on for years, and I think close to about 1 million people died, even after I left. But sirens went off, airports were closed, and as a young man in Iran, after the age of 14, all non-Muslims, I believe, definitely the Jewish folks, were not allowed to travel, period, after the revolution, leave Iran. Travel within Iran was fine. Leaving Iran wasn't. At the age of 14, as a young man, you could no longer, your passport was taken away or didn't work anymore, and you could no longer travel outside. With the mindset that they need young men, by the time they're 18, you got to enroll in the army and go to war, or you go to university and you study, and the choices for education were very limited. And I think for every year that you went to school, you had to go to rural areas for 2 years subsequent to it. So if you studied for 8 years, 8 to 16 years after your graduation, you had to pay your dues.
So how did you end up getting out if they literally put all these restrictions on you where you can't even leave the country?
Yeah, so it was a big adjustment when I came here at 8. Not a single word of English, and I don't know how long after, it must have been like only a few weeks, I had to go to school. And went to school, 4th grade, Lawndale Elementary School here in Lawndale, California. And day one was quite a shock, and then I learned how to speak English. Then I went back to Iran, and it was again another shock. Because 2 years later, you go back, now it's after the revolution, the system is really different. And I just started becoming defiant, and I did not want to stay. So I pushed back at a very early age, and especially after the war. And I told my parents that I don't want to live here and I want to go back. Wow. For some reason, I resonated that this is the place that, for me, that I want to be in. The process took about 6 years. I'm not going to bore you with the details. 6 years of war and having to go hide and sleep in bunkers at nights. Airplanes would fly by, the anti-aircraft missiles, the orange ones would shoot up, the skies would light up. And at that age, it was kind of, it's interesting how we were immune to it. It wasn't anything scary, it was just a part of life. Because we were used to it. You got to understand that I think our environment dictates the way we feel about something. If you take me back today and you put me in that situation, I'll probably be terrified, I'll be scared.
So how did this kind of tumultuous upbringing and how did that translate when you started business?
Yeah, so again, I had a vision that I wanted to have my business. I got smuggled out at 16, got shot at both sides of the border. I got smuggled out of the southern borders of Iran, which is right neighbors with Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's a triangle, they call it. So we got the 3 countries. We literally got smuggled out through that one particular area.
You're talking like in a car, like hiding, like, or?
I'll give you a really short version. I took a flight from Tehran, which is the capital where I was born in, to that southern city. I had to stand by a theater. The smuggler was supposed to show up at a particular time. He showed up 2 hours later, so the clock was ticking really slowly. I got picked up, thrown in a truck. The truck took off. My brother-in-law had no idea what was going on. Thought I was being kidnapped for maybe a second or two, until he put 2 and 2 together. Then we were driven to a small house. I then united with probably 20 or 30 people, I think 23 or 24 people to be exact. There were women, men, children, old, young, a lot of young guys, obviously. And we had to sleep there for 2 nights. Then the second night, they put us in trucks, put covers over us. They took us down the road and then just turned lights off, veered off, just like the Hollywood movies that you say.
Wow.
Went down an embankment, went on the desert. Now, Tehran, the capital, is we get 4 seasons. It's by a base of a mountain. The weather is very comparable to Washington, D.C. When you go down south, it's very desert-like, what a lot of people think of the Middle East. So came down the embankment, went on the sand, and started just pounding it, flooring it, and going. At some point, we were transferred all from 2 trucks into 1. I was holding on to the ledge on the driver's seat, 23 people in the back of a truck. It was an extended truck. And they just started going, and they would stop, and they would listen to the ground. And then all of a sudden, there was bullets flying. And they were shooting at us. I think it was Border Patrol of Iran.
Holy cow.
So the 2 trucks split. The Border Patrol followed the one that had nobody in it, and we escaped on the other side. Went to about bottom of a mountain, climbed it for about an hour, and then we were then given over to the Pakistani side of the smugglers. And these guys came and picked us up. They were heavily armed, brand new trucks. It was a complete different situation. We then got into Pakistan, stayed at a village 1 or 2 nights, I believe. And then from there, transported over to Karachi. We had to wear their outfits so we can blend in. Stayed in Karachi for a month, and right after that, I was flown into Vienna, Austria. I had some money with me when I left. Basically, the clothes that I had, which, by the way, got puked on. When they first started shooting at us, a kid or somebody puked, and I had to be in the same clothes for, I think, 3 days or something until we reached. Yeah, it was quite fascinating. But when I got to Vienna...
Fascinating is the word you used to describe that, yeah.
It was pretty
terrifying, cool. Probably.
It's a good experience, but it mans you up.
I bet real quick. And
really
I was thinking
quick.
about that. You were alone. You didn't have family with you when you were doing this, did you?
I didn't, no. I think a cousin of a cousin was in the same group, but very limited exchanges. But met some really nice people that I still talk to.
Wow.
One of my really good friends to date is one of the guys that I met at that first house.
How do you just turn that around in your head like that? Like, I can see it in your eyes. You're like, man, I met some great people. Like, you're just finding something good at. I'm like, oh yeah, you just got shot at, puked on, smuggled across the border, and barely came out of this with your life.
Well, it's a really good question. I think anything in life is how you spin it. So I could look at it and say, you know what, I'm one of the lucky guys. I came out, I made it. And I then changed my life, the life of my son, and then therefore the life of his children. Like, you got to take a look at that ripple effect. Or I could be a victim, and I could sit around and say, you know what, my life sucked, and it was horrible, and I had to get smuggled out, and I'm a victim. Do you see how much of like your mind plays a role in what you do in life? Yeah. And your true happiness? I'm not BSing and coming up with this stuff to make myself happy. That's truly the way I look at it. And I think every one of those could be a really valuable lesson depending on which lens you put on and how you view a perspective, which comes into challenges in business and personal life and all of it.
Totally. I mean, just that victim mentality. So many people do use that and as a lens for their experiences, and then, you know, they blame other people for why they don't have what they want in life and in business, like you said. But I admire just the way you're able to spin such a terrifying experience into a positive one, and I'm sure that's helped you in business as well. I know that that's one of the key things that definitely changes things.
It does. Now, my parents, I don't know their entire full background, but the one thing they did with us is they were always that positive force, right? So people that kind of see themselves as a victim, it comes with conditioning. That's another conversation, I believe, for a very long time. But I do believe that even with that, even with those patterns and those conditionings that we've had handed down to us generation by generation and then by the environment that we're in, we get to choose to change. Because you make one change and all the future generations of you are going to enjoy the benefits of it, or the opposite is very true as well.
God, that's so powerful. I love it. Just the ability to choose.
The ability to choose. It's growth mindset versus a fixed mindset.
Yep, 100%.
What do you want to do? So I got to Vienna. I had some money with me, just my clothes, some money. I guess I bought some other clothes, I'm not sure. But got there and I ran out of money very quickly. I had a pretty good taste for life. Like I remember even in Pakistan, people were just having rice and tomatoes and potato in it. And I found a really cool hotel. Believe it or not, it was a Holiday Inn. And Holiday Inn was one of the best hotels in Karachi. And I would go there and wine and dine myself and eat. So I got to Pakistan and I spent a little frivolously and I ran out of money. So I ran out of money and I'm like, holy crap, I gotta start working. So my first job was to shovel snow and clean sidewalks. This is Vienna, Austria. Freezing cold temperatures. I would stand in line at 3:30 p.m. If you're lucky, you would get a pick or a shovel or something and you would clean sidewalks from 5 p.m. till 5 a.m. And then I would go to my second job at a belt factory. So and it wasn't because my parents couldn't afford it. Good middle-class family, I wouldn't say upper middle class, but good middle-class family, hardworking individuals. But I had a lot of pride. And I didn't want to call them up and say, hey, I want you to send me more money. And with the currency rate exchanges and whatnot after the revolution, it was pretty difficult for them to send that kind of money. So I didn't ask for it, started working for myself, working at these odd jobs. And then I saved enough money, bought a little cafeteria from someone. He was leaving. All of these places that I was in, Karachi was for a month, Vienna I was there for 11 months, it was transitory.
Yeah.
So this one guy, he had this cafeteria and he was making a little bit of money, but his time was up and he was coming over. So I actually bought that from him. I saved enough money. I paid him and I said, instead of giving it to somebody for free, I'll take over and I'll actually pay you so you can enjoy your last month and not have to work before you leave. So I took over the cafeteria and started selling sandwiches.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. You don't want to ask for money. Your parents could probably send you a little bit enough, just enough to survive. But what motivated you to, work 2 jobs? Obviously you were surviving, but what was the driving force for you? Like, wow, there's a cafeteria. Like, I want to own that. Let me buy that.
Well, I didn't want people to just hand over things to me. There was a program that you could apply for that they will pick up your housing and they'll pay for your food, but you have to show financially you're enabled to do so. And the way I looked at it, first of all, my parents wouldn't qualify. I didn't want to lie. And I saw myself as a very capable human being, so I didn't want to get a handout. And I got to a point that I was completely starving. So I would go to this club where it was the organization that supported us that I'm so grateful to, Jewish Family Federation, HIAS.
Okay.
I would go to the club and I would drink tea and put 5 or 6 sugar cubes in it. That's what I ate for like a few days. That was my food, my source of meal. And it wasn't just me, it was a couple of other guys. So it was that drive, it was need. I think necessity creates a lot of creativity.
I mean, it's fascinating. I know that your life story is just incredible. I do want to get to how you've managed to grow Dastmalchi and all these different brands to a global presence, especially how you've built brand awareness and things like driving so many people to your websites to be able to purchase this. And I guess where to start would be, how do you find a good business to go into? How'd you figure that out? How'd you pick wellness or the Vita Goods? Like, how did you find those?
Yeah. So I became self-employed at 18. I had a number of successes. In 2008, 2009, when the economy crashed, I crashed with it. I was always a good critical thinker. I loved marketing and building things, and how do you connect the dots? How can I get a consumer to actually connect with a product or a service that I'm offering? So I had some good successes. In 08, 09, completely crashed, looked at a number of different businesses, wanted to go after something that is sustainable. So the products, the portfolio brands, when you look at them, we don't sell products that are highly complicated. So it literally started with, and one of the things that is really exciting today for anyone, for my son who's 19, in fact, it could go down to somebody who's 12, you can get on the internet and you have access. You have access in your back pocket. You can do transaction with Asia. You can find a graphic designer in Bangladesh that will do something for a couple of dollars. You have access to pretty much anything that you want to do.
Pretty incredible, especially, just with a phone. You can do almost anything with a phone, and, things like Fiverr, right? You can just, hire people for $5 where you can get them to do designs and stuff
Freelance.
like that.
Freelance.com, Behance.net.
Upwork, right, yeah.
Upwork, I have tons of great resources that I'd love to share. But for me, it was, again, out of necessity, once again. 09, I'm completely broke. I have an incredible team of 5 people that showed up to work and said that, you know what, we don't need to get paid. I kid you not.
Wow.
They're still here.
Wow.
They said, we don't need to get paid. We're just going to figure this out. You're going to figure it out, and we want to work with you. So they came to work for about a year and a half with no pay. And if they were late, they would call and tell me why, which was, I'm so grateful for my guys. So having a good team is it speaks volume. But I wanted to get into a business, to your point, looking at products that people use every day. and trying to see how can you improve that experience? How can you improve that product? How can you take away the inefficiencies? And this is why a lot of the bigger brands are suffering today, and indie brands like us are doing extremely well. It's because we're natively digitally vertical. We go all the way to the maker. Our first product that we bought, I bought on Alibaba.com, connected with a toothbrush manufacturer. I used the credit card that I didn't know how I'm going to repay, and I bought 3,000 toothbrushes from them for a total of 50 grand. I started with 300, by the way. I didn't start with the 3,000. And I bought somebody else who bought the same product from the same company but couldn't sell them. So it was with the focus of around products that people use in their routines. At the beginning of the business, we're 100% wholesale. I think if you work hard, the doors would open for you, the universe will pay you back. Groupon at the time was doing really well, so we went to Groupon and said that, hey guys, we have the same electric toothbrush that you have, but we have very little overhead, so we can give it to you at a really great price where you can then market that.
Is that
to your
because you're still
customers.
not paying your staff, or did you start to pay them at this point?
No, we
I'm just
started as soon as I know, right? No, they all do handsomely well and well deserved.
Well, just real quick on that note, building a team that strong, that loyal, how did you keep them excited about coming to work when they weren't even being paid for a year?
I honestly didn't ask them to come in and work for free, and I had no idea. I would not dare ask somebody to come in for work for free. But I treated them in the years that they've been with me. The longest person is Selena, 18 years this June. I've treated them with nothing but respect. I don't think that there is, at least in our culture, right? There is no difference between what Selena does and what I do. We're all on the same level. We're part of one team. We're different moving parts of an engine. Mm-hmm. And if one of us doesn't move, the whole engine doesn't move. So how do you prioritize and say that, no, you know what, this part of the engine is way more important and valuable than the other part?
That's a good lesson on leadership, though, too. I mean, as the CEO, a lot of people out there think you're the single leader of the company, and I like that analogy because it really shows that it takes a team of people to lead a company.
Yeah, I think about that quite a bit, especially after my crash. When I came back, I was humbled, and it was the greatest gift of my life, the greatest gift of my life. But the way I look at it, you could either build a company and be that genius with 1,000 helpers, and most likely after you leave, and we all leave, in one way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
After you leave, there'll be the death of the company eventually. But what if you developed a bunch of leaders under you, and as the CEO of a company, you become a really good coach?
Yeah.
Then you have many leaders in a company. And when you leave, it doesn't die. It continues to grow. So that's always fascinated me. I treat people with the respect that they deserve because at the end of the day, we're all human. We just have different job titles. And some of us make more money than the others because we want it, and there's no right or wrong, right? But going back to how and why, so again, going after lowest hanging fruit, products that people use in their routine, taking out the inefficiencies, having access, believing in yourself and your team, and being there for them. We brought our first products in. Groupon bought them from us. Before it hit the ground, it was sold out. So then we went after the next one, and the next product, the next product. That was really nice. And that was the start of our wholesale business. And we immediately wanted to make sure, well, how do we, and again, from my past, my particular past, I've always relied on one or two very large clients. That model didn't work for me, it failed, because now you're at the mercy of somebody else. So we wanted to diversify. That diversification came from, hey guys, we need to do something to directly connect with consumers. Which brings me to marketing. I think in marketing, a lot of times we think something may or may not work, but we could be surprised. We have a different philosophy here that we'll almost try any kind of marketing. It's that Pareto rule. You try 10, 8 fail, 2 win. The 2 methods that win will completely eclipse your failures and the money that you've wasted there. So
I use that rule all the time for this podcast. I literally just say that I think that 80% of our results come from 20% of the actions we take. The key is just knowing which 20. And I think right there, just from a marketing perspective, testing everything, to find out which things work is really good. What other marketing strategies have you used that you find are really helpful?
Yeah, so as we were doing this, one of our very, very young ladies, she was 19, she said, well, why don't we sell on YouTube? And my answer to her was at the time that literally, quote unquote, YouTube doesn't have a store. Like, what are you talking about? And you got to understand, this is 6 years ago. I'm 43, I'm barely on YouTube, and I love YouTube now. I go on there and I get access to a lot of great information. It was like, no, I follow these beauticians, and the term influencer marketing didn't exist at the time. That I follow these people and they recommend products and I buy them. I'm like, huh. So we spent $2,500 for each video. We did 2 videos and then followed those results. At first it was kind of and then a few months later we saw that revenue is still trickling in. We had a link, people were coming in, they were making a purchase. So when we saw that, we got really excited about it. We quickly built a pretty large team.
You got into influencer marketing before it was influencer marketing.
Well, influencer marketing is interesting. It's always been influencer marketing. We never labeled it, right? Nike.
And then maybe use athletes and,
Michael Jordan.
Right, exactly. Right? Okay.
So they have an influence. You and I have an influence. I'm not going to speak about yours, but my influence is very limited. I have like 800-900 people that follow me, and it's private, and it's my close friends and family, but I do have influence over them. Now, to the credit of today's influencers, and again, having access and having floor time, there are some that do it extremely well, and people get to judge, which is really cool. So it's not by marketing that this show is cool or this person is great. They literally go on there, they're raw, they're authentic, they give information. If people like them, they'll start engaging with them and following them. So that was the start of our influencer marketing, and we saw that doing extremely well. We ramped that up to a pretty large team of 18 people, and we're constantly developing and testing new models. We look at ourselves as a continuous startup engine.
That's a good mindset to have, especially as a successful company, because it kind of makes you a little bit more nimble, more flexible.
100%.
We talked a little bit once in a different conversation about influencer marketing. And I'm just curious too. People were starting a store or a brand, and they wanted to experiment with influencer marketing. Do you have any kind of tips to be able to navigate through that arena? Because it's not like I'm gonna be able to get Kylie Jenner to you give me a post on Instagram, but would it be worth it for me to find somebody who's got 10 or 20,000 followers to try and get them to sponsor one of my products?
100%. I think you have to start with the product first. The product has to be a good product. One of the biggest drivers here, our philosophy, is if we don't love a product ourselves, if we're not willing to use it, our friends and family, our loved ones are not going to use it, and if it's not in a great value, we're never going to sell that product. So nothing gimmicky about an electric toothbrush, about a facial exfoliator. These are really good products. We do get pitched quite often on products that promise to do something, and if we don't believe in it and the efficacy is not there, we don't do it. So start with the right product, the good product, especially in today's world, which again, I love because there's accountability. If you don't, you're never going to take off. You might make $1 or $2 here.
Just thinking like Amazon reviews, right? Where you're just sitting there and you're like, hey, is this product any good? It's the cheapest one on there. 400 one-star reviews, not good. So you've got a lot of accountability there to your customers.
There's accountability. I don't think if you have the right product, you're never going to do well. So when you do have it, you believe in it, then you start small. And don't be afraid. Start small with somebody who has a few thousand influencers, depending on what your budget is. And influencer marketing is just one way of marketing.
Right.
And there's paid, and there's
paid advertising.
Marketing is changing on a minute-per-minute basis, and it's getting more and more exciting and fun. I would say you test everything within reason and budget.
What is something new that you guys are trying out with marketing that you might be able to share with us?
But the jury's still out on it, so I'm going to have to hold that close to chest and see if it works.
Sure.
And then I'll be more than happy to share. But there is not one particular one. We're now working on, somebody said something really great, that you spend so much money, you bring new customers in. A lot of cell phone carriers and these cable networks, they always give the best offer to the new customers. And the ones that are already subscribers, that turns people off. So this was a VP at Salesforce that said, you got to really take care of your existing base of customers. Now, we're fortunate enough, last year alone, we shipped out 1.35 million units of products.
Wow.
We've transacted direct on our website, only vanityplanet.com. Over the past 4 years, we have 1.8 million almost customers. So we're now doing this program called the MVP, which is kind of like the restoration hardware model, if you will, Costco model. I have to be cautious saying that. We don't charge a membership, but once you buy from us, we've already paid some marketing fee very efficiently to bring you in. And once you make a purchase, why would you ever have to pay for marketing? Why not get that product at the lowest price available anywhere? So that's one of the most exciting initiatives that we're working on.
Almost like a flip on what the cable companies are doing. Instead of rewarding only new customers, you guys are actually rewarding existing customers.
Try us once. If you don't like it, get 100% your money back. If you do like it, for life, you're going to get the lowest price. And in fact, the more you spend, the more benefits you get for being a part of the program.
Yeah.
So without having to pay for a membership fee.
That's genius right there.
So we're working on that. It's a lot of work. Amazing team. They do work tirelessly. They work hard. They're passionate about the company. We're looking at our beauty line, for instance. It's beauty with self-care. And the emphasis is beauty is from inside out and outside in. They kind of go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a brilliant guy. You're, in addition to what you're doing now, you're an orthodontist, so you get it. If we're not happy inside, we're never going to look as beautiful as we can on the outside. And vice versa. If you wear a nice shirt, which, by the way, that's a very nice shirt. If you wear a nice shirt, you groom yourself, somebody tells you how good you look, you're going to feel really good inside. Yeah. So they feed each other. So now we're putting a lot of emphasis on content that truly makes people feel happy. And we think that that is our calling. And buy product, if they want to buy any of our products, then fantastic. We'll be grateful for it. And we'll give them good value.
And I just hear so much passion from you and how much you care about providing good products, about providing value for people. What do you think for an entrepreneur out there looking to build a brand would be one of the best actions that they can take, the Pareto principle like you were talking about? What's something that they should do to really maximize their results?
I think the Pareto principle is something that we're all suffering from. I gotta rethink my to-do list all the time. In fact, something that I do quite frequently is create a not to-do list of the things that I shouldn't do. After I'm done with that, I take a look at things. I'm like, what can I eliminate? You know that quadrant that you put things in? Urgent, important,
right.
Urgent, important, not urgent, not important. So if you take a look at all of your ideas, all your tasks, and you start placing them in this quadrant, the not urgent, important, not urgent, those are all just going to fade away. That's your graveyard.
Right.
The urgent, important, you want to tackle. The important and the urgent, you get to the urgent first, and then the important. So I do that, and then when I'm done with that, I like to see what can I do to, I'm a hacker. I like to hack time. Because I also have a good balance with family and friends, and I don't want to be a slave at work. So for me is, what can I eliminate first? After that, what can I automate? Then I look at what can I delegate. I think a lot of us entrepreneurs, and this was especially at least my case, before I had my crash, we have big egos. I can do it better than anybody else, which is far from the truth. I think if you remove your ego, you delegate to the right people, you coach them.
I fell victim to that too, man. I gotta tell you, I just was like, always trying to do too much, always trying to do everything on my own. And because sometimes I'd say, oh, I could do it better. But the truth was, I couldn't do it better. And if I did do it better, it probably took me 10 times as long to do it as paying somebody else to do it. And it's not worth it. You got to focus on that quadrant about what's important sometimes a little bit more.
And if I may interject one last thing, a lot of things that we suffer from, I don't know why a lot of us think that we gotta work on our weaknesses. I do not believe in that. I think you double down and you capitalize on your strengths, but before you do, immediately recognize what are your weaknesses and hand them over to somebody who's really good at that you're not good at. And trust them. Give them time, talk about expectations, trust them, and let them do what they do. In most cases, they're gonna do a heck of a lot better than you do, or better than I do.
And better than I do as well. Alex, thanks a lot. Where can we find you online?
It's been a pleasure. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on every social media platform that you can think of, as you can imagine. Dastmalchi.com has a portfolio of brands. I don't think my contact info is on there. But again, on LinkedIn, if anybody messages me or emails me, I'm pretty good at responding.
And we can include the links in the podcast episode just in case anyone wants to reach out. So you've experienced quite a bit of success from really humble beginnings to where we are now. But for you, what is your next level of success?
My next level of success is my personal growth, and I'm seeing that here. That's what drives me every day, is that curiosity. I'm not complacent. I don't sit still. Ultimately, I have I see English is my third language, so you're gonna have to help me out. I have ideas for giving back that I really want to see in action, and that includes maybe building schools. As you know, I'm very involved with Corazon de Vida.
Yeah.
I'm as involved as I can be.
I'd like really to be involved a lot more.
Yeah. I like to be involved a lot more, and that to me is, and everybody's different. So not everybody has to go out and do things. Some people like to give to animals. Some people like to help their friends, or just raise really good kids. It doesn't matter. For me, I believe that's my calling, and it gives me sustainable happiness. It's better than anything else. So I'd like to one day be able to spend a lot more time there.
I think once you take care of yourself, people struggle with that for a little bit, but once you handle that and your family, that key to happiness that you just said is giving back and doing something for others.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Alex, thanks so much for coming on Unleash Success.
It's been a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you guys enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that we have is please go subscribe.